I want to talk to you about reading today. I already hear some of you go, "Oh, Ms. Burrows, I don't want to talk about reading. I hate reading." And I understand, because I used to hate reading. It wasn't until I was in 6th grade when my teacher introduced me to the Narnia series that I really became an avid reader. Now, when I'm stressed out or had a bad day, I like to pick up a book and just escape from all the drama. But let's face it, reading something you love is very different from reading a textbook. If you like the subject, think atoms and matter, you might not mind reading a science textbook. But for everyone else, this might pose some difficulties. So I want to give you some reading strategies to help you with that. Let's get started with our prezi on Read with a Pencil. And I promise you, in a minute, you'll understand why I called it Read with a Pencil. The first thing that you need to know is that just because you read something doesn't mean you understand it. I have read a whole page before. Okay, let's be honest, I've read a whole chapter before and got to the end and thought, I don't have a clue about what I just read. So, what I'm saying is reading is more than just words. Well, you're probably asking yourself, what does that mean and how is this going to help me? Well, good readers have strategies, and I found a video that will help you with these strategies.
Oh, good morning, friends. Preacher here. Oh, it's good to see you today. First of all, I wanted to thank you for stopping by, and today's lesson is going to be on how to be a good reader.
Okay, I was just kidding. While I'm sure he is a phenomenal speaker, I think I will just go ahead and tell you them myself. So one of the first strategies is set a purpose for your reading. Ask yourself why you are reading. Are you reading for specific information? Are you reading to study? This will help you get your mind ready for reading. Next, good readers skim for important information. For instance, was your purpose to find information? Then you won't read an entire chapter. You will be skimming for that specific information by looking at bold-faced words or italicized words. You might even be looking at pictures and graphs and the captions that belong with them. Good readers also think while they are reading. Some of you may be saying, what do you mean by that? Can you really think and read at the same time? The answer is yes, and a lot of you do this without knowing. Have you ever read something and thought, I would like to know more about this, or that's pretty funny, I would love to share that with my friends? Guess what? You were thinking and reading at the same time. Okay, as I said earlier, textbooks and informational articles can be difficult. So I'm going to show you some marks or annotations that you can use while you are reading to help you with your understanding. You will definitely want to have these in your Cornell notes because we will be using these all year long. These marks are made in the margins of your paper to help you with your thinking and understanding of the text. The first annotation is a check mark. Really simple, it means, hey, I already know this. This might come in handy if you are studying and wanted to keep track of those passages you needed to spend more time on, or the ones that you felt you didn't need any additional study time for. The next annotation is a question mark, and this can say, I am confused, I don't understand this, or it could mean, I would like to know more information about this. Next is a star. You will use this when you come across something important in your reading. For instance, when we get ready to cover your argumentative writing, I will be giving you newspaper editorials and asking you and your group to locate the author's argument and the evidence to support their opinion. You would use a star in the margin next to the sentences to show this. The next one is a heart, and before you go, Ms. B, that is so lame. Have you ever been reading something, listening, or watching something and thought, that is so funny, or that is so awesome, I can't wait to tell so-and-so? That is why I'm having you use a heart. Throughout the year, I'm going to ask you to make a note of something you find interesting or really like a lot, and ask you to share with your group or the class. The next annotations are more specific. The first one is TS, and it stands for text to self. This means you have made a connection with something you read to something that has happened to you or someone you know. A good example might be an article about a student who was suspended for a dress code violation, and maybe you know someone who had the same thing happen to them. Hopefully this hasn't happened to you. You would want to make this notation in the margin next to the area. The next annotation is TT, text to text. This means whatever you are reading is similar to another book or another text you have read. An example might be the connection I made when I was reading The Hunger Games to another book, The Giver. Both books are about dystopian societies with serious issues on how they treat their people. The next is TW, text to world, which means this reminds you of something that has happened in our country or another part of the world. An example would be an article I read about the conflict in the country of Darfur and how many people have been persecuted and murdered because of their race. I might make the connection that this sounds very similar to the Holocaust and the actions Hitler took towards the Jews and other people he didn't feel were worthy. Finally, TM means text to media. Let's face it, we are a media-driven society. We like computers, we like cell phones and our iPods. We like to watch TV. You might use this annotation when you make a connection with information in the text you are reading to something you saw on a television or saw on a computer. Okay, so there's the annotations. Let's look at a paper that has been annotated. I have used an article by a teenage girl who started a petition to urge 17 magazine to include girls in their magazine who haven't had their pictures photoshopped. So you will notice I made an annotation here of text to self at the top. The author talked about lugging her 50-pound backpack around, and it reminded me of when I was in school and how very heavy my backpack was. Notice the information isn't important to everyone, but I am making my own connections with what I read. I also made a couple question mark annotations in the left and right margins. One was because I had never heard of the group that she started, and I wanted to know more about it. And the other one was because I didn't understand how Photoshop worked, and I wondered how that worked as well. Notice I made a heart annotation. This was something the author said that I thought was pretty awesome. I also made a star annotation because this was a very important section. These few sentences were really summed up the explanation for the whole purpose of the petition she created. Finally, my last two annotations were a text to media because I was thinking about a Dove commercial a few years ago that chronicled a model from the beginning when she had no makeup and her hair wasn't done, all the way through until the production of the commercial. She didn't look anything like herself, and I thought this was similar to what our author was trying to say. And the last one was text to world because the author talked about all the reporters shoving microphones in her face and asking her the same questions. And it reminded me of our president or a movie star who is constantly bombarded with questions by the media. So that's just a brief glimpse of an annotated text. There are a few last strategies that you can use. One is to circle unknown words, the words you couldn't figure out using context clues. These will be the words you can talk about in your groups or ask questions in class. The second one is to reread or read ahead. Sometimes when I am confused, I will go back and reread a section. If that doesn't work, I will read ahead and see if there are any clues there. Another great strategy is to summarize what you have just read. If you can do this, the understanding is there. Finally, and most importantly, is to practice, practice, practice. Because the more you read, the better you get. Well, that's it. Bring those notes to class tomorrow because we are going to be using those annotations I've just given you as we look at a newspaper article. See you tomorrow.